This video is about the quiet psychology behind having few or no friends, and why that may not be a weakness, but a signal. Have you ever felt that group conversations drain you? That most social exchanges feel rehearsed, shallow, almost artificial? That after a while, you would rather step back than perform? You may have questioned yourself, wondered why connection feels forced, why you do not move with the crowd the way others do. What if that difference is not a flaw, but evidence of something rare? In this video, you will understand the 7 traits that often sit beneath social isolation. Traits rooted in perception, restraint, and psychological independence. And by the end, you may see why the very thing that distances you is the same thing that quietly commands respect. You notice what most people miss. This is not about being superior. It is simply how your mind processes the world. While others see a calm room, you sense the subtle shifts beneath it, the brief hesitation before someone answers, the flicker in their eyes, the tightening of a jaw. You register these details automatically. They become information stored quietly in your mind. In social settings, what feels casual to others feels layered and complex to you. You hear the second conversation beneath the first. You see who is seeking approval, who is aligning, who is subtly competing. You recognize changes in loyalty before they are spoken aloud. To you, power is not about titles. It is about posture, tone, positioning, who leans in and who instinctively yields. You do not just watch the performance, you see the structure behind it, the need for validation beneath confidence, the insecurity hidden inside charm. And once you see it, you cannot return to seeing less. The world is never as simple as it looks on the surface. This awareness makes you difficult to deceive. You detect insincerity like a wrong note in music, faint but unmistakable. That clarity protects you, but it also creates distance. Because when you understand the mechanics behind gestures others accept as genuine, it becomes harder to engage without noticing the design. Your awareness is your greatest strength. And at the same time, it is often the quiet reason you stand slightly apart. And once you begin noticing these details, you start to realize how much of social life operates beneath conscious awareness. You have a quiet intolerance for superficial conversation. Polite exchanges about the weather or weekend plans feel rehearsed, almost mechanical, as if everyone is following a script. To you, it feels like wasted mental energy. Your mind does not look for surface-level noise. It looks for depth. It wants substance, complexity, meaning. Forcing yourself to act interested in small talk takes effort, and that effort drains you more than you admit. This is not arrogance. It is not that you think you are above anyone. It is that you are wired for authenticity. When a space is filled with shallow talk and social performance, you instinctively pull back. You look for quieter corners, for one real exchange instead of 10 empty ones. Some people interpret this as distance or coldness, but in reality, you are waiting for something real to enter the room. You want conversations that explore ideas, emotions, motives, the deeper why behind what people believe and how they think. One honest, layered discussion stays with you far longer than 100 polite interactions ever could. So your solitude is not avoidance, it is selection. You are not escaping people. You're searching for what is genuine, essential, and worth your attention. And until you find it, you remain still. But perception alone is not what separates you. It is what you choose to reject. In the complicated world of social interaction, there is a strategy that most people never master. It is not loud. It is not attention-seeking. It is deliberate silence. You often find yourself at the edge of the group, not because you are excluded, but because you choose to observe instead of adding to the noise. Every gesture, every glance, every shift in tone becomes information. You collect it quietly. You study it. This is not passivity. It is patience. It is intelligence gathering before making a single move. Your silence works like camouflage. People forget to guard themselves around you. They speak freely. They reveal more than they intend. And something interesting happens. Your quiet unsettles them. They rush to fill the space you leave open, exposing their insecurities in the process. Silence is never empty. It is full of thought, awareness, and controlled restraint. Your stillness becomes a mirror, reflecting people back to themselves. And if you think about it, why compete with noise when you can learn more by listening? That is why, when you finally decide to speak, your words carry weight. They cut cleanly through distraction. They shift the tone of the room. Not because you are loud, but because you are precise. It is the calm confidence of someone who understands the territory and feels no need to roar just to be seen. And this is where silence stops being absence and becomes leverage. If you find that people often misread your silence or independence, that is not accidental. Strategic detachment is a skill. I break this down in more detail inside my ebook, The Art of Strategic Indifference, where I explain how controlled distance shifts power in social situations. If you want to understand how to use indifference without becoming cold, the link is in the description. In the wide landscape of human emotion, most people follow one of two survival patterns. The first is externalization. They release their feelings outward, talking them through, sharing them quickly, looking for reassurance in numbers. It is like safety found in a crowd. But there is another path, rarer, quieter, internal containment. This is where you draw emotion inward instead of projecting it outward. Not to suppress it, not to deny it, but to study it. You hold the feeling in place, you examine it, you break it down piece by piece. For you, emotion is not just something to experience, it is something to understand. It becomes information, a complex internal pattern to analyze before you act. This creates space between what happens and how you respond. A pause, a buffer. While others react instantly, you calculate. From the outside, this can look like detachment. But beneath that calm surface, there is constant processing taking place. Your sense of right and wrong does not depend on the room. It is calibrated internally. You do not look around to decide how to feel. You decide within. There is a quiet strength in that stillness. While others become overwhelmed by their emotions, your containment allows you to see the entire field clearly. You are not swept away by the moment. You remain steady inside it. It is the strength of something grounded, silent, controlled, and unmoved. What looks like emotional distance is often calculated control. In the social world, the pressure to conform is one of the strongest forces you will ever feel. It keeps groups united, keeps people thinking alike, keeps the herd moving in the same direction. Approval from the group creates safety. It creates belonging. And most people adjust themselves, sometimes without realizing it, just to maintain that position. But there are individuals who are not easily pulled by that current. You may be one of them. You operate with an internal compass that does not shift with public opinion. Your direction is not set by trends, panic, or sudden waves of agreement. It is set by principles you decided on long before the room tried to influence you. When the crowd abruptly changes direction, chasing a new idea, reacting in fear, aligning with whatever feels safe, you often remain steady. Not because you want to rebel, not because you enjoy opposing others. That would be too simple. This resistance runs deeper than that. It comes from an independence that does not require validation to remain intact. And that is where the difference truly begins. Independence becomes dangerous when it cannot be socially steered. It comes from a deep trust in your own judgment, a trust that was not given to you but built slowly over years of watching, listening, and analyzing on your own. You have seen how group wisdom often turns into the loudest voice dominating the room, or the most anxious voice spreading fear. You have watched crowds make serious mistakes, pulled in by confidence that sounded convincing but lacked depth. You have seen how easily people fall into shared illusions simply because everyone else seems certain. So your independence is not random. It is learned. It is protective. You understand that the safest direction is often the one you determine yourself. That is why you are difficult to pressure. In meetings, debates, family discussions, you rarely fold just because others lean heavily in one direction. You listen carefully. You take in every perspective. You let people speak. But the final decision is never made in the noise of the room. It is made later in the quiet territory of your own mind, where no one else has access. And once you decide, it is not easily shaken. You consider the group's opinion, but only as one factor among many. It is information, not authority. And rarely is it the deciding factor. This frustrates people who depend on consensus as proof of truth. To them, agreement feels like certainty. But you do not outsource your thinking that easily. You are willing to do the slower, harder work of forming your own conclusions. That internal compass gives you unusual stability. While others adjust their views, their loyalties, even parts of their identity to match whatever direction the social wind is blowing, you remain steady. When you say yes, it holds weight. When you say no, it stays no. Not because you are stubborn, but because you do not shift without reason. You can change your mind, but only when new evidence appears, or when a stronger argument genuinely challenges your position. Not because a crowd has grown louder, not because agreement suddenly feels safer, and that quiet consistency is something most people sense immediately, even if they cannot explain why it unsettles them. And consistency, when it cannot be pressured, quietly shifts the balance of influence. You're not anchored to the group, you're anchored to your own integrity. Groupthink moves quietly through rooms like an invisible current, pulling everyone toward agreement, often at the cost of clear thinking. People want harmony. They want acceptance. They fear being isolated. So they silence their doubts and nod along, even when something feels wrong. But you do not feel that pull in the same way. Your distance from social approval acts like a circuit breaker. The pressure that forces others into quiet compliance does not grip you as tightly. Without trying to be, you often become the dissenter. Not because you enjoy conflict, not because you want attention, but because your mind does not relax when logic is flawed. When you notice a gap in reasoning, a risk others are ignoring, or a boundary that is about to be crossed, something in you refuses to stay silent. It is not aggression, it is intellectual honesty. And whether the group welcomes it or not, you feel compelled to say what others only think in private. Your loyalty is to the truth as you understand it, not to the comfort of the room. While others stay silent, weighing the social risk of speaking, you weigh something different: the intellectual cost of saying nothing. To you, remaining quiet while something false is accepted feels heavier than disrupting harmony with an uncomfortable truth. Silence in that moment feels like agreement, and you do not give agreement lightly. This often places you in a difficult position. When the group is excited, you are the cautious voice. When everyone is certain, you are the skeptic. When people want to move forward quickly, you are the one asking the question that slows everything down. From the outside, this can look like negativity. It can be labeled as resistance, as lack of cooperation, as not being a team player. But that is a surface interpretation. In reality, you are performing a necessary role. By refusing to be carried away by consensus, you interrupt blind momentum before it turns into regret. And even if no one thanks you for it, you understand why you do it. Truth, when spoken without fear of exclusion, changes the hierarchy of a room. If you appreciate this kind of analysis, you can leave a like. And if you want more content on power, perception, and social dynamics, you can subscribe. In the layered terrain of social life, there is a rare type of person, someone who survives through unfiltered authenticity. While most people adjust themselves to fit the room, softening their tone, reshaping their opinions, smoothing their edges, you often do the opposite. You do not distort your internal reality just to meet expectations, and that unsettles people more than they admit. The intimidation does not come from aggression. It comes from clarity. Your authenticity quietly signals that you trust your own perception more than the comfort of the group. Without trying to, you become a mirror, reflecting the gap between who people present themselves as and who they are in private. You naturally step back from shallow exchanges, not out of superiority, but to conserve energy for something real. You are not easily pulled by emotional waves sweeping through the room, and you do not feel obligated to support a consensus that makes no logical sense to you. In most social systems, information is traded lightly, shaped for approval. But you deal in something heavier, unfiltered truth. Because of this, your social circle may be small. The space around you may feel sparse. But the connections that do form are built on mutual respect and clarity, not performance. And for you, there is one boundary that is never crossed. You will not surrender the integrity of your own perception just to belong. In a world that measures value in numbers, you choose depth instead of volume. While many people focus on building wide networks and collecting acquaintances, you invest your energy in very few connections, but you go deep. To you, success is not about how many names you know. It is about how strong and real the bond actually is. You understand that every relationship costs energy, attention, time, emotional investment. These are not unlimited resources. So you do not scatter them. You concentrate them. You look for understanding, for resonance, for something that feels solid rather than convenient. You are drawn to conversations that explore what is beneath the surface, not ones that stay comfortably shallow. For you, a real exchange feels like excavation, both people digging carefully, uncovering meaning, not just trading words to fill silence. From the outside, this can look like isolation. It can appear as if you're alone. But what others call loneliness is often your filter at work. By refusing to spread yourself thin, you create the conditions for something rare. Connection that is steady, intentional and real. In choosing depth over volume, you may have less. But what you have carries weight. And when depth replaces volume, what you build may be smaller, but it becomes unshakable. If you step back, you can see the pattern clearly. Your behavior does not follow the common social script. Your mind moves on a different frequency, guided by an internal compass that does not point toward belonging at any cost, but toward the clear direction of your own perception. The traits we've explored, heightened awareness, intolerance for the superficial, strategic silence, emotional self-containment, intimidating authenticity, and the preference for depth, are not flaws. They're not social defects. They are refined adaptations. They belong to a mind designed for a different form of survival and a different standard of purpose. Together, they form an internal architecture, a framework that processes the world by choosing clarity over comfort and substance over performance. Most people do not immediately understand this way of operating because it quietly challenges the foundations of common social strategy. It does not chase approval. It does not depend on noise. It stands slightly apart. And that quiet separation, persistent, steady, and intentional, is what makes it rare. The world is filled with repetition, echoes of the same ideas, the same behaviors, the same patterns repeated with slight variation. Most people move along familiar routes, following themes that feel safe and widely accepted. But your solitary configuration is proof that the spectrum of the human mind is far broader than most realize. These traits are not errors to fix. They are not conditions to cure. They are precise tools, rare instruments designed for navigating a very specific position within the complex landscape of human consciousness. To carry them is to walk a path that is often quiet and at times lonely. You move with a different map in your hands, one that does not lead down crowded highways, but toward unmarked paths few are willing to take. The pressure to discard that map, to replace it with one that earns easier approval, is constant, subtle, persistent, and resisting it demands a calm, steady strength that does not seek recognition. Remember this: the world is not shaped only by loud movements and popular waves. It is also shaped by the silent, unyielding integrity of those who refuse to abandon their own direction. It is in the quiet spaces, in your deliberate withdrawals, in your decision not to participate in collective illusions, that a different kind of power begins to form. Not loud power, not the power of control or command, but the power of perspective. When you step back, instead of stepping in, you see angles others miss. For some people, real understanding is not found in the center of the crowd, surrounded by noise and agreement. It is found at the edge, in stillness, where observation becomes clear and undisturbed. That distance gives you vision, and the truth is, the nature of who you are was never meant to be simple. If this gave you clarity, leave a like. Share your perspective in the comments. If you know someone who would understand this message, share it with them. Subscribe for more calm, strategic insights, and watch the next video to deepen your understanding of how perception shapes power.